8 people were killed, 11 more were taken to the hospital today after a suspect drove a rented truck down a very well-used, very popular bike path in Lower Manhattan. The suspect was shot in the abdomen by police. Tonight, he's in a local hospital. At this hour, WNBC in New York City is citing law enforcement officials and saying that the man left a note in the rental truck that he used as his weapon tonight, claiming that he was acting on behalf of ISIS. Now, ISIS a couple of years ago did explicitly call in its propaganda magazine for its followers to use trucks, specifically trucks, not cars, not light SUVs, to run down pedestrians to cause mass casualty events. Officials today in New York City described an effort that they've undertaken in recent years to actually work with truck rental companies, trying to help them spot suspicious customers who might have an attack like this in mind. Over the past couple of years, officials said today they visited nearly 150 truck rental locations in the New York area. They say they reached out again to those locations after the truck-borne attack in Nice, France last summer, and then again after the Christmas market attack in Berlin that had some of these same hallmarks. Tonight, Pete Williams of NBC News suggests that because the suspect in today's attack had not just a regular driver's license, but a truck driver's license, that suspect might have actually been more likely to get a truck rental without facing a lot of questions from these anti-terror campaigns. Now, despite the continued efforts to stop this kind of attack from happening tonight, those 8 people have been killed, many more are injured, and we still await claims either from ISIS or from anybody else who may try to credibly claim this attack. Joining us now is Rukmini Callimachi, foreign correspondent at the New York Times, and NBC contributor. Rukmini, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
What do you make of these reports that there may have been a note in the vehicle?
That's really telling. If there was indeed a note, and if the note, as my colleagues at the Times are now reporting, pledges allegiance to ISIS, it then really matches down to the T what Rumiyah, the English language magazine of ISIS, called for in their issue in 2016. In that issue, they said, like you said, to use a truck, not an SUV, to mow down pedestrians and to keep driving over them in order to cause the most carnage until it's not possible to continue. So we know that he ran into a bus, which stopped him. Then you're supposed to go out on foot, use a secondary arm, whether it's a knife or some sort of other weapon or a gun, to continue hurting people, and you're supposed to leave a note behind. Those were the elements that they laid out, and if indeed there is this note, that seems to, you know, very much be in line with that.
That sounds very much like the MO of what happened at Ohio State in 2016.
Exactly. Ohio State, Berlin, and Nice are the main examples that we look to.
And each of those have had at least some of those elements that were prescribed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So start Nice, Berlin, and now New York is using the large truck. Before we've also seen with smaller cars, but in general those are not as deadly.
Now, one of the things that I've learned from you in your coverage of ISIS is that ISIS typically does not like to claim responsibility for attacks when the attacker is still alive, particularly when the attacker is in custody.
Exactly.
Explain again why that is and how that may apply to this situation.
The reality, Rachel, is we don't know why they do this. The speculation is that they don't want to do this because if they claim him now, then it's going to complicate his case when he goes before a jury, which this young man likely will do.
Okay.
Think back to the Chelsea attack not that long ago. That person wounded over 24 people. In the diary that we found on his person when he was taken in, it specifically referenced Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, who's the spokesman of ISIS and who was calling for attacks in the West. So they had every reason to claim that attack. We know that was terrorism, and yet they never did.
Right. They never did. He was taken into custody. He was just convicted.
And he was just convicted.
And he claims that he was acting on behalf of ISIS. ISIS does not claim him.
ISIS does not claim him. Exactly.
And in this case, we've had no claims of responsibility from ISIS or any other group from today's attack.
We've had no claims of responsibility, but what is curious is just yesterday, ISIS put out a banner that they translated into 4 languages, French, Russian, English, and German, calling for attacks on Halloween. They do this quite frequently.
Attacks in the United States on Halloween.
They didn't say Halloween.
Okay.
They didn't say United States, and in fact the picture showed the Eiffel Tower. So you can read whatever you want into that, but it was yesterday, and Halloween is an American holiday.
Okay.
And what is odd about that banner is, number one, it was translated multiple times, so that shows that they're really trying to get it out there. And it had the date. Usually these banners just say attack Paris, attack London, and there's no date. This one said Halloween, October 31st. So it was very specific, and I don't know if there's a tie there, but if this is indeed an inspired attack, perhaps he was responding to that.
And the suspect named in this case, they're describing as a 29-year-old
Yes.
Uzbek-born man.
Yes.
Does his Uzbek nationality say anything to you in terms of potential ISIS affiliation or anything else?
It does, in the sense that the most recent figures that we have from the Sufan Group report, which just came out a couple of days ago, regarding the number of foreign fighters, they say that around 40,000 people from all over the world joined ISIS, and the region that sent the most foreign fighters is the former Soviet republics. Uzbekistan was one of the nationalities of the Istanbul airport attackers, and around 5 or 6 people from America that went to join ISIS, we know were Uzbek nationals. The thing I caution is we know that this person immigrated here legally in 2010. So I don't want to at all suggest that this person joined ISIS and returned, only that there is a preponderance of people from that part of the world that seem to have been taken in by the message of this group.
Rukmini Kalamaki is foreign correspondent at the New York Times who focuses on ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Islamic terrorism. Rukmini, always seeing you under terrible circumstances, but thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right, we got much more to come tonight, including the latest on a new batch of documents that was unsealed by a federal district court tonight in the criminal case against the Trump campaign manager. We were not expecting this docket to get unsealed tonight. It was unsealed tonight. It is very substantive, and that's